Welcome in to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast, the official podcast of your New Orleans Pelicans. A podcast dedicated to everything you need to know about the squad. Hear from players, coaches, broadcasters, and those who cover the NBA on a daily basis. It's time to flock up. The New Orleans Pelicans Podcast starts right now.
Well, good morning and welcome to another week as we are rocking and rolling. Mardi Gras weekend coming up. We'll get into all of that as well. Mardi Gras now, 8 days away? I think if I do the math right, I know Jim Eichenhofer is going to give me the exact numbers, hours, days, minutes, seconds, all of that. But we got so much to get into. It's a full week of basketball, only one game here at the Smoothie King Center for the next couple, because the team does go away for the Mardi Gras road trip, as it's affectionately known around here. That said, back on Friday, wrapping up the other road trip to finish 2-2, it came down to the very end. What a finish in San Antonio. The Graph and JD with the call.
Missed the layup, tapped out,
somebody blocked it.
We got it. Front court Z takes it in. Got the lay-in to go!
Oh, tough. Zion Williamson.
Over the front iron with 3.8 seconds to go. He had a head of steam like a bull. And there was no foul, evidently.
I mean, now look, when Z's on the court, that's probably a foul. But he's coming in like a freight. He's coming in like a freight train.
A freight train.
After the game, this is what Zion had to say about the play.
I just trust my game in that situation. Transition, I can get downhill really well. And when I saw that Jeremy had he was in an awkward position, I took advantage and I was able to get to the vantage point.
Head coach Willie Green's thoughts.
It was extremely impressive. I haven't gone back and watched it, but I saw the ball hit his hands and he just took off. And I had a timeout, and there was no way I was going to burn that timeout at that time with him going as fast as he was. And, you know, it was one of those moments where whatever we were going to do, we were going to probably put the ball in his hands anyway. So it just his touch, his speed, his force, it was on full display.
So your gut instinct was in that moment was, no way we're taking this. Zion's got the ball. Let's see what happens.
That's
here.
it. The ball's already in his hands, and if he makes it, you know, we walk away with an opportunity to win. If he doesn't, you know, we'll live with it.
Could you imagine if they would have called a timeout? Jim Eichenhofer, NewOrleansPelicans.com. You were there. You were in the studio with us and you watched it. I literally heard you through closed doors yell yes when that play happened, man. You go back to that win. Look, that was a battle. That game was one of those games. It wasn't pretty. You wish it wouldn't have been that close, but that's today's NBA. And at the end of the day, did you get the win?
Exactly. And Willie Green, I think, said after the game, it was nice to be on the winning side of a game like this. We've had way too many times, including 6 times this season, where they've lost a one-possession game. And afterward, you have a long night, and it's hard to sleep because you go back through and say, we could have done this and won the game. If that had happened, we would have won. I mean, just a bunch of series of different things that can change outcomes. So it was great to be able to finally get a close win. And by the way, when I was sitting on the other side of the door that you referenced, where you heard me yelling, there's a little time delay between the radio broadcast and the TV. The radio's way ahead, which is part of why I sit in a different room, because I get disoriented if I hear both broadcasts at the same time. But I heard you guys yell something like 3-pointer, and I thought you meant, you know, it was like 10 seconds before I saw it on the TV. I thought you meant that the Spurs made a 3-pointer. So I was freaking out for a few seconds there. Yeah. But really what you guys were yelling was just that you were surprised that the Spurs ended up with a 3-pointer in that
inbound
situation.
play. Believe me, I'm okay with it. But you would think, right? Because, again, I have a graph PTSD of that game against the Memphis Grizzlies, where they inbounded it at the rim with 1 second to go, and they wound up sending the game in overtime. I mean, look, you saw it. The guy's incredible. As he gets older, and you heard Zion afterwards talk about what he thinks of Wemby. He said multiple MVPs, multiple Defensive Players of the Year. His athleticism, you saw that. But goodness gracious, that's a guy who literally doesn't have to jump to dunk. I don't know why you wouldn't draw up a play where he stands at the box, you lob it, he grabs it, he just taps it in. But again, I'm glad they won't figure that. They didn't figure that out that game.
They might have gone to that if there was 1 second on the clock, but I think because there was 3 or 4, they got a little trickier because they had
Jim, that's
more
how
options.
you get fired right there. No, you're overthinking it. No, I hear what you're saying exactly right.
I do think, though, to your point, that maybe, I don't know why I'm going to sit here and give them suggestions after all the misery they've handed, but maybe a more likely play than taking a 25-footer is you throw it into him and he can shoot over anybody. Like, even if it's a mid-range shot, you're not going to block it.
Do you think maybe they were doing it to the top of the key to didn't get it in, and he just thought it was a good, clean look, and he took the shot?
It's possible, too, that Wemby was used as kind of a decoy, or whatever they drew up got cut off. Sometimes it happens, too, that whatever play you draw up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to run it, because you might have 2 guys on the Pelicans that surround him, and all of a sudden you can't get him the ball. You have to get somebody else.
That's neither here or there. Congratulations, they didn't figure that out. But if I'm playing NBA 2K something, I'm absolutely doing that play. Either way, there were so many aspects of that game that eventually you can kind of extrapolate and talk about. Obviously, the end of that play, the Brandon Ingram block. We've talked a lot about his season so far and how he's elevated his game on the defensive end. That block, Zion said it, that doesn't happen. Maybe the outcome's completely different.
Yeah, and I think that was of Wemby too, wasn't it? With him trying to
he was going back off the glass.
Put back up there. I think it's possible too that I mean, this is, I talked about second guessing and a sleepless night. If the Spurs probably looked at that like we should have just pulled the ball back out because we could have just run the clock out, but he's trying to get the ball back up off the glass to get a 3-point lead instead of it being 1. But yeah, you're right. Brandon Ingram making more plays, and that was one of the biggest plays of the season, as was Zion's game-winning basket. First game winner of his career, I believe, right? So
is it really?
I think it is in terms of like the last few seconds of a game. There might have been a time where he had a basket in the last 30.
I want to continue that,
sure.
Okay? Because it's one of the things that we talked about in the post game, and it's one of the things we have been talking about here in the podcast. And Friday was a radio roundtable. We talked about all the guys under 25, and one of the questions you asked John DeShazer and Aaron Summers was, what's an aspect that they need to, kind of pick up or take that next step?
Elevate, yep.
There you go. See, this is why you're a wordsmith and I'm not. Well, one of the things that I said after you guys had the discussion is one of those stepping up to be the person. The player. Hey, game's in. I got this. The phrase "hold my beer," right? That we like to say. Here you go. I got something to do, which we did see at the end of a calendar season a season ago before he got injured. Yeah, and we saw him play that. We really kind of haven't seen a lot of that this season. But what I felt watching that game, 14 points in the fourth quarter in a game that was a struggle, Jim. And look, and I say that because San Antonio was playing very well. I mean, they were doing the 2-man game, as he was saying, inside out. Vassell, he was hitting threes. They were doing all of that. But didn't you feel like in that fourth quarter, Zion was like, come heck or high water, I'm taking it in. I can hear Graf say, Zion, top of the key. There's the wall. 4 Spurs. He split. I mean, like, it didn't matter. There were literally 4 San Antonio Spurs in front of him forming a wall, and he would split them, and he'd get the phone, to get the call. Then they were doing hack a Z, But am I wrong to think that game this season, that seemed like the Zion saying, we're winning tonight. Put here on my shoulders. Here we go.
No, I think you're right. I mean, that was maybe the most determined that I've seen him play this season. It was like I'm not going to take no for an answer in this game.
Right.
He's done it here and there. I mean, it's not easy for any player to do it every single game or even once a week, but I feel like the game against Minnesota this year where he had 36 was similar to that. The game against Philly where he had 33, and then obviously in the Spurs game he had 33 again. So they're pretty unbeatable when he gets to that level where he's getting into the 30s scoring-wise and he's taking over games. But that's what he did, and to his credit too, I don't want to start a huge bunch of frustration from fans, but listen to this. But I mean, there definitely were a couple times in the fourth quarter in the second half where he got fouled and didn't get a call.
No.
So to his credit, he kept. Yeah, Gus, I know it's a shocker to you. But
never would have thought that.
He kept going to the basket. So credit to him that he didn't say, okay, I'm not getting the calls, so I'm gonna try to do something else. I'm gonna go out to the 3-point line. No, he was like, I'm gonna stick with my bread and butter, and I'm gonna get to the basket, and ended up 9 for 13 from the free throw line as well. So that was huge that he was able to be so aggressive.
Head coach Willie Green actually said something about that after the game.
He, definitely from our angle, it looks like he's getting fouled and he's not getting those calls. But his response was great. He just continued to fight through it, continue to play, continue to force the issue in terms of with his physicality going to the basket. And if he didn't have it, he found open teammates, and big time performance by him.
All right, so there you go in that aspect. Just one more little bow on that, and then we can kind of transition, because obviously coming up, you have an incredible interview with Jose Alvarado. And by the way, did he win the game on Friday?
Yeah, I think he was huge. I mean, for him to be able to come in having not played at all in the first half and then be able to make the impact that he made. I think the biggest thing was the Pelicans were uncharacteristically not showing much resistance defensively at all in the first half. But there was way too many possessions where the Spurs were like, I'm going to just drive down the lane and get to the basket. Trey Jones is not what we think of as like a great offensive player. I mean, he's more of a distributor. He's not as much of a scorer, but there were a few times where he just got all the way to the basket for a layup, and it was like, is somebody going to stop him? Is somebody going to be on the ball? And so when Jose came in, that part of the game changed a ton. Pelicans gave up 65 points in the first half and then only 48 in the second half. And Jose played a ton of minutes. He played a 12-minute, I believe it was, consecutive stretch. So just that's, to me, even if you set aside the stats of, he had 8 points and he had some steals and other good plays, the fact that he doesn't play at all in the first half and then he is making such a big impact that you just keep him on the floor for such a long period of time, that tells you how valuable he was in that game.
No question about it. It really was something. And I kept saying one more thing. There were so many things, again, we can take out of that Friday game. We got to move on to this week. But
sure,
Dyson Daniels. I'm watching the game and I'm maybe not really paying attention to certain things that the coaching staff sort of does. I had no idea that he was matched up so much with Wembanyama.
Right.
And to hear the players and coaches talk about it afterwards, that's one heck of a matchup when you think about it, right? The fact that he played him so, I guess, as well as you can.
Yeah, I think to your point of what you mentioned about following the game, I don't think some of the stuff that Dyson did was as evident or stood out so prominently as what Jose did. But if you went back through the film, you would see so many times where he was stopping the ball. And that was huge because just like with Jose, they needed guys defensively that were going to put up a wall and say, you're not going to get to the basket anymore. And his work on Wemby, I mean, the fact that he's, 6'7", and he's having to box that guy out, and he's doing a pretty effective job on it. I mean, it was definitely a gang effort for the Pelicans to try to keep that dude off the boards, and wasn't always successful, but I mean, it's kind of one of those things where it's like you just do the best you can and you live with whatever happens.
It's incredible when you think about it. And we've been around Dyson. He's not a short guy. He's not a small guy. He almost gave up a foot.
Right.
on the defensive end.
Like 9-10 inches.
It's crazy. All right, let's hear from the guy himself who really did help spur that win. See what I just did there? That is a pun intended. Here is Jim Eichenhofer after practice yesterday. A little one-on-one with Jose Alvarado.
Here with Jose Alvarado. I guess I wanted to start with you. It's 3 years now that you've been in the league. You're kind of over halfway mark of your third season. Do you see yourself as kind of a vet now in the NBA? How do you see that part?
Nah, not yet. I got a lot of growing to do, but I'm just glad to be in the situation I'm in. 3 years in the league, that's a blessed thing. A lot of people can't say that, so I just want to keep learning and keep growing. And a vet, probably, I think you got to be like 5 years in, and then you call yourself a vet. But I still could grow and learning, and just trying to be a pro.
You might not consider yourself to be like the seasoned vet at this point, but I mean, are you at the point though where you can kind of take some guys under your wing a little bit or give advice to some of the rookies and stuff like that? You feel like that's...
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I told myself, I wasn't a regular rookie when I first came in. I did 4 years of college, so I did a lot of growing there. So my rookie year was really, I'm a rookie, but I'm an older rookie and a more advanced rookie, I guess you could say. So I always felt like that personally. So I definitely, can teach little things here and there. But also, they teach me stuff too. Everybody got their own ways of learning and stuff. So it's a learning experience everywhere.
It's also obviously been 3 years for you now in New Orleans. And I wanted to ask you about just your popularity here. I see people tweet stuff to me all the time about the Pelicans in general. And I see people that have, like, in their Twitter profile picture, it's them in your jersey. or it's a picture of them with you that they took their photo with you somewhere. I mean, what's that been like as far as just the fan base here for you?
Man, New Orleans is a special place, you know. Regardless of how my career goes and stuff like that, I think this is always be a home for me. Just because of the relationship I built here and the fans, just how much love and support they show me, and I just got so much love for them too. So it's a really great city that I'm blessed to be a part of.
You're coming off a game where you made a huge impact in the second half, but I mean, there's been a bunch of games this year where, especially at home too, where it's not just the stat of a steal, it's the way that you get the crowd involved in the game. What do you think about just the way that, just kind of the impact that I mean, maybe for not just you individually, but just the team overall, defensively, the way that you guys kind of get the crowd in the game?
I mean, the crowds are one of the most important parts for us, you know. Like I said, you know, when we get a stop and they're yelling, and, you know, they get us going. You know, we human. Some days, you know, we're not the most energized person. So to hear their voices and, you know, to just give them, when they start going crazy, we want to go crazy with them. So it's a great atmosphere, first of all, here, and that's why we want to keep winning. So, and, you know, bring the playoffs here, so, because it's one of the hardest places to play against an opponent over here, and we love it.
I know a lot of people have asked you about the Grand Theft Alvarado steal that you kind of patented. Have you heard stories about from people about, you know, youth basketball leagues in New Orleans where kids are doing that now, and not just here, but just everywhere? What do you think about that when you hear stories like that?
It's pretty cool, you know. It's like a little thing that I certified my stuff in basketball. So, you know, it could have started a whole bunch of years ago, but it started with me. So it's a great feeling. You know, Steph Curry started shooting threes from deep, and everybody wanted to do it. So I guess it's nothing like that, but it's close to everybody that's trying to do it, and it's pretty dope. You know, like I said, it's something I always could, you know, rely on and say I started something. You know.
Yeah, for sure. Wanted to ask you, you know, also, one of the things I've noticed in the arena, kind of talking to you about just being a dad, I always see your youngsters. It seems like they love coming to the arena. It seems like they like making friends with the team staff members and the arena workers. What's that experience been like? Is it the kind of thing where they when they hear that you have a game, they're like really excited because they get to go to the arena?
They love the nanny that's there. So you know, they always want to come to the game and play, and you know, they just love being outside. And you know, just big shout out to like the city and, you know, the organization just treating them so well. You know, they feel so comfortable, and they love to just show support. And when they come here, they feel like they're home. So it's a great feeling for me as a dad, and just seeing how comfortable my kids are around here. And, you know, I always want them to be themselves, and they are, man. And, you know, it's great being a dad, though.
It's been, I guess, roughly the same time frame of 3 years that you've been in the NBA and with your oldest. What impact do you think that's had on you, of just being a dad and having those two little girls?
I mean, it's the reason why I am here, you know, the reason why I go so hard, and the reason why at least I got, when stuff going bad, I got little things to lean on, and that's dumb. You know, they might be clueless on everything, but they're a big part of their dad reason of going and playing so hard and just trying to fight through the tough times. And, you know, they, no matter what, good game, bad day, good day, they always going to smile and show so much love, because, you know, they're so clueless on, you know, just the world right now, and it's a big thing for me.
Yeah. Last year, right around this time, you were in the Rising Stars game and won MVP, which I'm sure was a really cool experience for you. Do you have any advice for Jordan and Dyson that they're going to be playing in that tournament this year?
I'll tell them to enjoy every joy of the whole moment. You're at All-Star Weekend. We used to watch it as kids growing up, so enjoy every moment of it. But also bring that trophy back home. You know, the MVP trophy. Go bring that home for us. You know, it's here. I got it last year, so just come back and bring it back, Dyson or Jordan.
Obviously, you can't defend your crown because you're in your third year now and you're not eligible for that. Do you have any plan for what you're going to do All-Star Weekend this year yet, or is that something you're still thinking about?
Nah, I'm going on vacation with my kids, taking them to like Legoland or something. I got, you know, that's family time. You know, the only way I go back to All-Star if I'm in it again. So hopefully one day I'm in it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. You guys are also in the middle of a stretch where you just had a 4-game road trip. You come home for one game, and then you go back for 4 games on the road as well. So, I mean, that makes sense that you want to be able to get some family time in at this time of the season.
Yeah. It's a big part.
You've, in addition to, the Rising Stars experience, the stuff that your rookie year, what you got to do at MSG, one of the things I wanted to ask you about too was you got the experience of being joining the Inside the NBA TNT crew, and got to do your steal of Kenny Smith from behind on the set. What was that experience like? Was it kind of surreal just to be with joining those guys for broadcast?
I mean, it's all a blessing, man. I swear, like it's actually surreal. Just having those guys. First of all, admire my game. Like they talk about my game and how they show so much support on it, and then also just being around their presence. I respect all of them for what they did in the league. They created a path for this NBA, this people that's, in the league now, and their history just speaks for itself to this day. So it's just so grateful to just be part of that and conversation, just to have a conversation with them, and just to them know my name is amazing. And those little moments right there, I will always share for life, and hopefully we have a little bit more.
You mentioned the history of those guys. I thought it was interesting. I'm not sure if people realized this when you were there, like people watching, that Kenny Smith is a New York City point guard, and I know New York City, especially going back like a generation, has a history of a lot of great point guards. Is that something that you talked about with him, or something that you feel proud of, that you're one of this generation of New York City?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to represent the city as best as I can. He did it in a whole big another way. I'm just trying to just hold it down and represent. I just want to create my own legacy, man, in the way of regardless if it's breaking history numbers or just showing that people that is hope. It's my 3rd year. I could say somebody at least. I made it 3 years in the NBA, and then next probably 4 years, 5 years. I just want to keep on going and growing and tell people is if you do it the right way, you get there.
I know people know you in that area in Atlanta from when you played at Georgia Tech. When you were there, when you were playing at Georgia Tech, did you think defense is going to be maybe the way that I get into the NBA? Was that something that was part of your mindset?
Hands down. That's the only thing I said. I told my coach at Georgia Tech, I don't care what I win my senior year. I just need to win Defensive Player of the Year so I can have it under my belt, because I already know my height was going to go against me. So if I got that under my belt, at least they know I could play a little bit of defense. And that was my goal the whole time, just to go get that.
Wanted to wrap up with a couple questions about teammates. Early in the season, we asked a bunch of different guys questions about everyone on the Pelicans. I think you had something else going on. We didn't catch up with you that day, but one of the questions I thought was interesting, the responses was one of the things we asked everybody was, who's the teammate that's the most active on road trips in terms of likes to explore the city? And people picked you and Jonas. They were you and Jonas were the 2 people that were mentioned the most as far as just enjoys being active on road trips. What kind of stuff do you like to do when you're with the Pelicans on the road? Is it just seeing the cities, visiting friends? Why do you think they said
definitely that? Because I don't know why they said that, but I think it's more because of my energy, and when I step on to the plane and just excited to be on the trip with my guys. So some cities is definitely a city that you just want to go and learn the history and see around, have dinner or something. But then some cities, you just got to sit down and relax, and because you got to catch up on your body.
Sure. Is there any city that you hadn't been to, or that it kind of surprised you with how much you like it, or how interesting it is, or anything like that from since the beginning?
I mean, they all got their flosses and great stuff for it, but Utah's not as bad as I thought it was. Utah's pretty good, the city-wise, but all cities got their the things that they're nice about, and I enjoy it.
Last thing, another question I wanted you to settle was, one of the questions was, who's the biggest trash talker on the team to opponents between you and Naji? Who would you say that is?
Probably Naji. I get going, but Naji's Naji. So I say Naji, but I'm definitely right there. There's a nail biter between us 2.
Does he instigate sometimes, or does he more just react to other players? Because we see him all the time. Every time there's a little
I think it's both. I think it's the moment of what it is and how it's going and stuff like that. But we definitely good guys. We just live in the moment.
I appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Jose Alvarado stopping by and being able to chat with you a little after practice. That's one of those guys that you could talk for hours with, man. It's so much energy, knows so much. What stood out to you in the conversation?
Yeah, I liked his kind of message to Jordan Hawkins and Dyson Daniels, where he talks about how the Rising Stars MVP trophy is in New Orleans right now, and he's hoping that those two guys will carry that over and keep it in. I don't know if literally it's in New Orleans, but I mean like the fact that Jose won it last year, and it would be great to see either of those two guys that are in the Rising Stars tournament have that kind of success and that kind of accomplishment. There's 28 players, so you got to beat out a lot of people to get the MVP, but Jose was able to do that last year. And other thing, too, is I just always crack up at Jose's daughters. His oldest daughter, I'm sure everybody is familiar with her now because she's become the star of many press conferences where she's all over the podium and she's talking into the microphone. And even when she was a year or two younger than she is now, she was doing that. And she's definitely not shy. So I always laugh because I feel like his daughters are very much like he is, where you're walking around in the back of the arena and all of a sudden they just pop up out of nowhere, kind of like their dad does on the court.
Yeah, no, look, it's one of those things that I can sort of relate to. This past weekend, we didn't have any games, Jim, so we got to go to the parades. I sent you a photo yesterday. You're working hard. Inside of practice.
I'm grinding at practice.
No
I'm
doubt.
inside on a beautiful day.
Yep.
But you got to do what you got to do, Gus.
And I'm at the parade route enjoying a beverage or two with my 7-year-old. It was one of those things that you just appreciate because they provide you that energy too, especially when you're walking around. So it's good. I can relate to that when you hear him see that. But no, look, again, there's so many things he can do, and there's so many things when you hear him talk. Because when you say that, it is an interesting thing. He was the Rising Stars MVP, and now he's having a battle for minutes. It just kind of goes to show you the depth there as well, right? But I loved hearing him still talk about his teammates like that. In an office, in a relationship, there can be jealousy, right? That person may make a little bit more money. You think you're important. Not that I've heard any of those. But in a professional team setting, how rare is that, man? Because that guy is always on the bench cheering and rooting for his teammates, whether it involves him or it doesn't, Jim.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is he just gets it. He understands, that it's the most important thing is to be professional and to be supportive of his teammates as much as he possibly can. I mean, I think everyone on this team, whether there's multiple guys that are kind of on the edge of the rotation, meaning, sometimes there'll be a week where they play every single game, and then the next week they might they might get a couple DMPs, or they might only play a few minutes, which has been the case with Jose and Jordan Hawkins in particular, other players. So he just has a great attitude, and I mean he's got all of the intangibles. One of the things that I like about him is just his attitude. Like you said earlier, you could talk to him for forever. I kind of always tell the story too of media day when he was a rookie. He was an undrafted guy on a 2-way contract, and the very first time I met him, I was like, man, this guy's got such a great attitude. He's such a great interview. But at the same time, I was like, it's too bad that he's going to spend, probably most or all of the year in Birmingham. So it was kind of funny the way that worked out that, I thought we're not going to be able to take advantage of how great of an interview he is because he's going to be in the G League. And then what do you know, halfway through his rookie season, he's in the rotation and carved out a valuable role for the team, and then was a big factor in the playoff series against Phoenix that season as well. So just kind of shows you just the rise that guy has made. It's something that is a really cool story.
Yeah, pretty incredible. All right. Pelicans player to keep an eye on this week. We're home tonight against the Raptors, and then it's the Clippers. It's the Lakers just this week alone. Then you have a back-to-back Portland on Saturday. So those are all tough games. We just saw the Blazers beat Milwaukee after they gave the Pelicans a thorough here. Have a seat and watch a team ascending here. I mean, they did. I mean, let's just be honest with you. So all of these games are big, and especially when you look at Toronto. Like, you know what? I was texting to Todd this morning, and he goes, dude, all the games are big. How many games are left? 33? I think it was
33.
Yeah,
Yep.
33 games left.
29. They played 49, so that means 33 left.
33 games left. They're all important, right? Do I even want to look at where the standings are? Do I have to start doing that every single morning,
Yeah,
Jim?
I think we're getting close. We're getting close to that
I
part.
want to get above that line.
Yeah, I know.
That line.
I know. They've been in 7th for a while now, though.
Yeah.
Relatively speaking, I want to say it's been at least a week that they've been exactly 7th and haven't really been able to move up or down from there.
Well, they're a half game back of the Suns, a game and a half back of the Kings, even though you can kind of get one of those back, I guess, because of the tiebreaker if you finish there. And that's because those teams played. Remember, the Pelicans didn't play for 2 days on that. It's going to start evening itself out. But you keep looking at it, it's ridiculous. Thunder, T-Wolves tied for first. Clippers 1 game back in third. The Nuggets are a half game back and fourth. As we said, there's a separation. Those are the 4 teams that are going to be battling.
Yeah.
Then you got the Kings 5 back, the Suns 6 back, the Pelicans in 7, the 6.5 back, the Mavericks are 8.5 back, the Lakers, who we see this week, 9.5 back, and then the Jazz 10.5 back. So you do have a 4-game lead on that bottom one. And again, I don't want to be worried about 10.
Right.
But that's why all these games are important. And especially with so few at home early in this month, tonight's a big deal too.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they need to be able to beat the teams that are struggling, the teams that are under 500. You know, we talked about how they've been in 7th for a while, but they have gotten a little tiny separation with the Mavericks that they're 2 games ahead of them, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about later this week, especially on Western Conference Wednesday. But it's an important week for the Pelicans. The player to watch this week is going to be Zion Williamson. I should start with the player of the week for week 15. It looks like it's going to be Zion Williamson as well. Pelicans went 2-1 last week, beat the Rockets, beat the Spurs, lost to the Celtics in a game that they had a lead but weren't able to close it out in the fourth quarter. As I say this, as we record, Zion almost has 75% of the votes among fans that were polled on X, so he seems to be on his way to a comfortable victory in that category. By the way, he also won it in week 1 and week 6, so he's pretty regularly been a winner of this award. And he also is the player to watch this week. Like you mentioned, Raptors, Clippers, Lakers, Trailblazers. They haven't played the Raptors or the Trailblazers at all yet. And the fact that they haven't played Portland, I think, is definitely unusual because there's teams in the West that the Pelicans have already finished this entire season series with. Portland's the only team left in the West that they haven't played. There's a few teams in the East that the Pelicans haven't met yet, with the Raptors being among that group. Part of what I'm looking at for Zion this week, too, specifically, is his last game against the Clippers. He had 12 points and was 3 for 9 from the field, so that was a tough night for him and the team overall. So looking to see him have a bigger game. This one is on national TV as well on ESPN Wednesday. And then Friday, game that's on Fox 8 and Gray TV. The last time against the Lakers, which was New Year's Eve, he had 26 points. He was 8 for 12 from the field. Bounced back big time from the performance that he had against the same Lakers team in Las Vegas at the beginning of December. So curious to see, after he had the 33 points Friday and 14 in the fourth quarter, the way that he performs this week. And it'll be huge if he can continue to kind of head in that direction where he's getting closer to 100% physically and being able to dominate at least portions of games.
All right, there it is. Jim Eichenhofer, as always, appreciate the time.
Thanks, Gus.
Jim Eichenhofer is the way to follow over on X. And as always, give us a follow here. Don't forget to go and click follow the show, listen to the podcast, and do all that. And every time a new podcast pops up, boom, it'll pop up on your phone, on your laptop. If you follow us and all that, and you'll know when the newest content comes out. So looking forward to it. Got a couple of games here this week. The only one at the Smoothie King Centers tonight against the Raptors. That is a 7 o'clock tip. TV, radio, hope you enjoyed, if not being personal at the game. In person. That's what I meant. Hey, I'm Gus Kattengell. That's Jim Eichenhofer. Thanks for listening to another edition of the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast. Join us 3 times per week on Pelicans.com, the Pelicans mobile app, the iHeartRadio app, or where you get your podcasts. And be sure to give Jim and Gus a follow on X at Jim_Eichenhofer and GCat_17. We'll see you next time, right here on the New Orleans Pelicans Podcast.